Hello, and welcome back to another Booktube channel. I'm Nick, and today I will be ranking all 15 Wheel of Time books. The Wheel of Time is an epic fantasy series. It is kind of the epic fantasy series, I guess a lot of people would argue, particularly for American fantasy. It is a series that I was very nervous to undertake, but I had a close friend who had read the series about 8 or 9 or however many times. And he kept insisting, it's really, really good. You should give it a shot. You should read it. So I did. And I'm really glad that I did. And I'll be ranking all of the books today. It's a 15-book series, like I said. And there's 14 in the main series with a prequel book as well. I'll be including that in the ranking. What this video won't be is an in-depth review of each individual book. It's going to be more high level and just a pure ranking with some notes about maybe why that book is where it is. I'm also going to try to keep things spoiler free, just because I really would like everybody to read the series, and I want you to go in as fresh as possible and not really know what's going to happen. Because I do think it's a great series. And I guess I'll begin with that. Just a quick high-level review of the series as a whole. I think The Wheel of Time is probably one of the greatest stories ever told. It is not perfect, but it is just an incredibly rich and just lush world that is fully realized in every way. Everything from the map to the different cultures within the world, which feel like they were just pulled out of something real. Like, it's unbelievable that Robert Jordan just came up with these on his own, just from imagination. It really makes you feel bad for your own imagination, because it's so wonderful, and it's just so just fully realized. Definitely not perfect. It can be repetitive at times. There's a very famous slog in the middle of the series that a lot of people will find hard to overcome, but it's well worth getting past. And another, minor point, the romances in it can be a little slapdash. There are some really great romances in it, but there are some that just feel like they come out of nowhere, and they're not very well put together. But in the end, the characters are so fantastic that all of those little things, I think, are really overshadowed. And I have never read a series before that made me love the characters so very much. Even the ones that are annoying, they are so strongly written. They are all very unique, and they have clear motivations, and they have clear reasons for behaving the ways that they do. It's just fantastic. So that's my quick high-level review. It's a great series. With that, let's get into the ranking. Quick note that I've only read the series once, and I've been told that as you reread it, you will start to feel differently about each book because you'll see new things after each one. This ranking is just based on first reactions after each book, the first time through. And last place in 15th at the bottom of the ranking, I don't think this is a controversial choice, but Crossroads of Twilight, which is book 10 in the series. I don't think it's controversial. I think that it's just a book where nothing really happens. From what I've gathered, it is the consensus as the closest thing to a bad book in the Wheel of Time series. And it's, for a lot of people, that's really off-putting because, like I said, it's book 10. So in a 14-book main series, to have a book so late in the series be a complete dud, it puts a lot of people off. But what I will say is that even though nothing really happens in it, it still reads pretty well, and you can kind of get through it kind of quickly, and move on to a better book. 14th, I've got The Path of Daggers, which is book 8, and this is firmly within the slog of Wheel of Time. It's just I mean, there's not really much to say about this book. It's very bland. It's the shortest one in the series, which is great. But other than that, I mean, there are things that happen in it, but there's nothing that is too world-changing. It's just a lot of taking care of business and moving things along a little bit. But yeah, Path of Daggers is 14th. 13th, I've got the prequel book, New Spring. And I feel a little bad about this one because I do appreciate this book. I appreciate what this book is trying to do and what it did do, which is give us some backstory about Moraine and Lan, about how they got on their path that is eventually the Wheel of Time proper. And the information conveyed here, I like that information. I'm glad that I have it now because it does flesh out those characters more. It's just that the story here is very minimal and just kind of dull. Much of the book kind of, especially if you read the main series first, which I recommend you do, because this is not the best introduction, honestly, even though it's a prequel. A lot of the information will kind of be repeated. A lot of the book is a particular process that is dealt with in the main series as well. So you're just kind of reliving it again, but from a different character's perspective, which can be interesting. But for such a short book, it actually took me as long to read this as the longer entries, because each book is at least around like 900 pages, and this one's only about 300 plus. But it still took me over a week to read because I couldn't get into it. So New Spring is next. 12th, we've got A Crown of Swords, Book 7, which I don't know that everyone considers this to be part of the slog. I do think that this is where the slog begins. It's not terrible. It's just that there's not really a ton of forward progress. And it's, when compared to the other books in the series, it's just not as strong. But we're getting into the part of the ranking now where all of the books are pretty good. And gonna be honest, everything here from like 11th to like 4th place are pretty interchangeable because it's really just gonna be a matter of preference. So take all of this with a grain of salt. Of course, it's subjective anyway, but just know that everything that I'm about to say could easily be switched if, like, you convince me. Like, I'm not married to this. But with that being said, 11th, I've got Winter's Heart. This is book 9 in the series. It is part of the slog. I think it is the best of the slog, in my opinion. There is one really big thing that happens at the end of this book, and that's the reason I put it at the top of that middle portion of that slog. It's really great, and it's really important to the world. Books 7, 8, and 10, to me, don't contribute a ton that's really important. This one contributes something that's very important. So that's why I put it at the top of that. But still nearer the bottom of the rankings. So, Winter's Heart. 10th is the actual first book in the series, The Eye of the World. Yes, I do have different editions for different books in the series. I guess I started reading the series when Tor was retiring this and bringing in the new, extremely boring editions. So, yeah, I do have different editions. And yes, it does drive me insane to look at on my bookshelf. But no, I'm not going to buy the same books again. But I digress. The Eye of the World, Book 1. It is a solid start. It is, to me, a bit not unfocused, but it doesn't quite know where it's going yet. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. The ending in particular here, even after having finished the series, I don't really understand what the ending of this book was supposed to be doing or setting up. It's really bizarre. And honestly, after finishing this book, I was very, very hesitant to continue the series because I thought if it was just going to be more of this, I wasn't really going to feel it. You also, it's very limited. There's a ton of characters in this series, and we get a ton of different point of views throughout. This book is really only one character's point of view for the most part. And so it's very straightforward, and if you're not completely in sync with it, it can be a bit slow. So, Eye of the World, 10th. All right, 9th, I've got The Dragon Reborn. This is book 3. And this is one I bet if I read the series, it will probably be higher. But this is another really good one. This is the book where most people's favorite character, Matt, really becomes Matt. Everyone usually picks him as their favorite character. He's not mine, although he is up there. But yeah, solid book. 9th. Yeah, 9th. All right. 8th, I've got The Fires of Heaven. This is another just really solid entry. I don't have anything much more to say about this one. It's right in the middle of my ranking because it is just really solid. Really great book. But not my favorite, not my least favorite. So this is book 5, by the way. Book 5 in the series, book 8 in my ranking. All right, the 7th book in my ranking is the 4th book in the series, The Shadow Rising. And this book is where a lot of people would say this is where the Wheel of Time becomes the Wheel of Time. A lot of people compare the first 3 books to just kind of like a retelling of the Lord of the Rings. Gonna be honest, I haven't finished reading the Lord of the Rings. I've seen the movies, I've seen the extended editions, and I think they're really great. But the books I just haven't sat down and committed to. But book 4 is where the Wheel of Time really puts its foot in the ground and says like, okay, this is what I am and this is what I'm going to be. This is what you have to look forward to. This is also where I fall in love with my favorite character, Perrin. I absolutely adore Perrin, and this is the book where he really comes into his own. And from this point onward, it's just every time he's on the page, I'm just like, wow, so great. But yeah, Shadow Rising is 7th. 6th is Knife of Dreams. This is book 11. This is the last book in the series that Robert Jordan was able to complete before he unfortunately passed. And it is right after Crossroads of Twilight, which is the worst book in the series. And this is fantastic. And this is a true return to form. Everything about this book is great. The pacing picks up. Characters that are previously incredibly dull become incredible and fantastic. There's just a huge corner that's turned here. And it feels great. And I'm so happy that Robert Jordan was able to get this one out before he passed, and show people that like he still had it and that he wasn't losing it because of that slog. Knife of Dreams is great. And it stays great after this. And that's like a little wink, tip of the hat to what's coming next. Although the next book in my ranking is well before this one. It's Lord of Chaos. This is the 5th book, right? Yeah, no, 6th book. I'm sorry. This is book 6 in the Wheel of Time. Honestly, there are probably better, more complete books in the series, but this book has the best ending of any book in the series. I'm just going to say Dumais Wells is unbelievable. It's so great. And just on the strength of that, this is really, really highly ranked for me. But also, I mean, it's a solid book throughout, but that ending really puts it over the top. All right, we're getting into the top 4. So the 4th is Towers of Midnight. This is the penultimate book. It is book 13. And you'll notice that it's Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson. That's because after Knife of Dreams, because Robert Jordan passed, the series was finished by Brandon Sanderson, who is also great. These books were actually my first introduction to him. I hadn't read any of his stuff before, and his work on this made me want to read his standalone, like his novels instead, as well. Towers of Midnight, fantastic. Just getting everything kind of all the ducks in a row to get us to that final, that finale. It's super strong. It's super well written. A lot of great stuff here. So yeah, that's the fourth in my ranking. My third ranked book is the final book in the series, A Memory of Light. It's phenomenal. The difficulty in bringing a series like this to a close, especially when you're not the one who started it, Brandon Sanderson had a truly Herculean task set before him. And it is unbelievable that he was able to deliver a finale that is, from what I could tell, universally loved. It's not perfect like the rest of the series. There are pieces and characters that we all, I think, would have liked to see a bit more of in terms of a conclusion. But, I mean, to bring it all together here so well, it's astonishing, really. It's really unbelievable. And I can't wait to read this series again so that I could read like this book again, because it's so satisfying. It's so difficult to be satisfied after something like this because there's so much expectation, and to get that satisfaction is just great. All right. The second book in my ranking is the second book in the series, The Great Hunt. This one, I wonder if on a reread it'll be as high for me, but for me this was a really important one because I mentioned The Eye of the World didn't convince me when I first read it. It was a little tough to understand what they were going for and what Robert Jordan was aiming at. The Great Hunt is a bit more traditional in narrative. There's like a magical item fetch quest type of plot that makes it easier to kind of attach to and be like, okay, we're doing something, this is what we're doing, let's go. And he's able to sprinkle in a new point of view, new information about the magic in this world. And this is just really where I started to connect with the Wheel of Time. Like, okay, this I can get into. This is really strong. The pacing was great. This just gave the series a sense of urgency and weight that I was missing from The Eye of the World. So, book 2, number 2 in my ranking. And the number 1 ranked book, and this is, again, I wonder if this will change when I reread, but, and I don't know how many people would agree with this being so high, and the number 1 is The Gathering Storm, book 12 in the Wheel of Time. This is Brandon Sanderson's first book in writing the series, and I've heard people say that, you know, there's growing pains here, and that he really doesn't get it until the Towers of Midnight. I didn't feel any growing pains at all. From the prologue of this book, I was gripped. And Robert Jordan, he's a great writer, but his pacing could sometimes be a bit frustrating, and he could sometimes be a bit repetitive. And I wouldn't say he's my favorite type of writer, even though he wrote something so amazing. Brandon Sanderson is more my speed of writer. So I think just that switch in the way the story is being told, and the switch in pacing, and the switch in the way things are described, it suited me better as a reader. So that may have just been why I took to this book so much. It was just a huge, refreshing change of pace a little bit. Even though Knife of Dreams right before this was fantastic, this I just felt like just roared into an upper echelon. I loved this book. And there's certain events that happen in this book that I just love as well. Certain characters in here that take next steps that kind of change the entire world for me. So this one just really, really did it for me. So this is my top Wheel of Time book. That's it. That's all 15 books ranked. What did you think of my ranking? You can tell me in the comments how incredibly wrong I am and furious you are that a book is so high or a book is so low. Leave your rankings in the comments. I would love to see them. But thank you for sitting through this. I hope you enjoyed it. And have a great day. I don't have a good sign off yet. I got to work on that. I'm going to get there.